Hi friends, welcome. We are going to analyze a query using Krishnamurti's Paddhati's Horary rules. This is the example chart. The query is, when will I get a job? My idea in this presentation is to show you how methodical and elegant the Horary section is in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. So the query is, when will I get a job? The random number between 1 to 249 that was provided is 121. This is the date and time when this query was taken up for the judgment. Date, time, and the place. Now, whenever we try to analyze a query in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, there is always a primary house that has a direct bearing with the nature of the query. So for this question, when will I get a job? The primary house or the primary cusp is the 10th. And the rule, Smriti's rule is the 10th cuspal sublord should be a significator of 2 or 6 or 10. Why 2 or 6 or 10? Because the second house is the house of earning. Sixth house is a day-to-day job, and the 10th is the main house of career and profession. Now, before we apply this rule, the 10th cuspal sublord should be a significator of 2 or 6 or 10. Let's take a look at the rules for the retrograde planets in Krishnamurti Horary. In Krishnamurti birth chart or the natal, the retrograde is not taken into consideration. We do not pay attention to the retrograde planet in the Krishnamurti's the birth horoscope or the natal astrology. But in the query, you have to look at the retrograde. That's very important. So let me share the rules. So the retrograde rules for the primary house, cuspal sublord is, first let's look at the rules, then I'll explain you. These are very easy rules. If the cuspal sublord is retrograde, for example, we are talking about the 10th cuspal sublord should be a significator of 2 or 6 or 10. And the primary house is 10. So if the cuspal sublord of the primary house is retrograde, then it will not deny, but one has to wait until it becomes direct. So it will give result if it is seen to be giving result. If it is a significator, then it will give result only when it becomes direct. Second is if the cuspal sublord is already direct and it is in the star of a retrograde planet, then the other planet in whose star this planet is deposited, unless that becomes direct, the person will have to wait. The query will not prove to be successful or a failure. Nothing can be said about that query unless the planet, the star lord planet becomes direct. Now, if both are retrograde, suppose the cuspal sublord is retrograde and it is deposited in the star of planet that is also retrograde, then it means a denial if both are retrograde. These are the usual rules you will find, but in my own experience I have found that this third rule, where it says if the cuspal sublord of the primary house is retrograde and is deposited in the star of another retrograde planet, this rule needs some modification. The example is if somebody says that will I be able to get a job, and if the 10th cuspal sublord is retrograde and it is deposited in the star of another retrograde planet, that doesn't mean that person will never get a job in his life, in his or her lifetime. Let's take another example. Let's say somebody has this question: will I marry the girl or the boy I love? Somebody has this question. With this question, the focus is on the fifth cuspal sublord. So now, if the fifth cuspal sublord is retrograde and is deposited in the star lord of the retrograde planet, then you can say, yeah, you will not be able to marry the girl or the boy you love. But if somebody says, when will I die? Let's say the question is, when will I die? Now you are looking at the cuspal sublord of the ascendant, and suppose it is retrograde and deposited in the star of another retrograde. So you can't possibly say that you will never die. You have become immortal. That becomes an absurd question. So the thing is that when some event has an element of timing involved, then if you get into this situation where the primary cuspal sublord is retrograde and it is deposited in the star of another planet that's retrograde, then you have to tell that person that the nimitta or the indication, the current indication for analyzing the query is not favoring the astrologer. This is kind of a divine signal to the astrologer that this is not the right time for him or her to solve the query. So at that time, you say to that person that you have to come back with the same question. When the planet become direct, and at that time they have to provide another Horary number. So I hope that is clear to you. The particular this third rule. So now let's apply this into these rules into the example chart. So let's first look at the 10th. Let's copy the relevant data. So we have the 10th cuspal. So this is the 10th cuspal sublord, which is Mercury. And let's look at what Mercury is signifying. So 10th cuspal sublord is Mercury. Mercury is signifying mostly these houses. So here you find that the 10th cusp is appearing and also the second cusp. You can see that the Mercury is the lord of the 10th cusp, and it is deposited in the star of Venus, which is the lord of the second. So, and is Mercury retrograde? Let's see if Mercury is retrograde. So we find that Mercury is retrograde. So our rule number 1, where it says that until Mercury becomes direct, nothing will happen. So that will apply because Mercury is deposited in the star of Venus, and Venus is not retrograde. Only Mercury is retrograde. So we need not be much concerned about it because it doesn't deny. It only says that until the Mercury becomes a direct, we will look into the ephemery when Mercury becomes direct. Then only the things will appear on the timeline. So our first rule, the 10th cuspal sublord Mercury is signifying the 10th house and also the second house. So the job is promised. You can say that the job is 100% promise. Person will get a job. Now let's look at this significator of the second, 6th and 10th house. So we have to look at the second house signification. We have to look at the 6th house and we have to look at the so the second house. Now if you look at there are two ways of looking at these significators. One is that you can make use of this table also, or otherwise you can quickly navigate through all the column 1 and 2 and make a note. So we'll make use of this table. So the second in the second you see there is Mars. So Ketu is in the star of Mars. So you see Ketu becomes the significator. And then Mars. This is the order of signification. Ketu is in the star of Mars. Ketu is the strongest. Ketu, Mars, and then Mercury and Venus. So I'm sure you know how to identify the significator for a particular cusp. So I'm just going to populate sixth house, sixth cusp is no planet is there. It is owned by Saturn. You find that Saturn is absent from the star lord column. So Saturn is a self significator. That's why this Saturn is untenanted. That's why this flag, the U flag you see over here, that denotes Saturn is untenanted. Saturn itself becomes a very strong significator of the sixth house. And then similarly, if you look at the 10th house, you see a lot of planets. These are significator of the 10th house. So you have Jupiter, Sun, Mars, Rahu, all these planets have become the significator. So if you combine all this, so you will see almost every planet except for the, I think, Moon is missing from the list. The Moon is not a significator. The Moon is not a significator of 2 or 6 or 10. So don't get worried. This because this is the usual thing that will happen in Horary. You will find that almost 70-80% of the planets, they become the significator. So now how to eliminate? For the elimination process, you have to take the help of the ruling planet. These are the ruling planets. Yes. So we will focus on the ascendant. Let me write the ruling planets that we are concerned with. Ascendant star lord. Ascendant star lord is Rahu, we can see here. Ascendant is Gemini, so it's Mercury. Then moon star lord is Sun. And then moon sign, moon is in Capricorn, so Saturn. And the day lord is for that particular day when the query was solved, Friday. So day lord. So these are the ruling planets we get. It is also a good idea to make a note of what Rahu and Ketu are representing. So Rahu is in Pisces, so it's going to represent Jupiter. Ketu is in Virgo, so it's going to represent. So we will say that Rahu is equal to Jupiter. So now our list of the ruling planet is complete. Now, if you look at the common ruling planet, those are common. So in this list, you will see that Rahu appears over here, Rahu also appears over here. Mercury appears over here, Sun, Saturn, except for Venus. No, Venus is also here. So all these planets, they appear. Now, the another rule is that reject those ruling planets which are in the star or sub of the retrograde planet. So the retrograde, we have the retrograde as Rahu and Mercury. Jupiter and the Rahu and Ketu they have a retrograde motion, so they are not retrograde per se. And Sun and Moon, they are never retrograde. So here we are only concerned with Jupiter and Mercury. These are the two planets which are retrograde. So we can, if we look here, then we find that Rahu is in the star of Mercury and of Jupiter. So both are retrograde. So we will eliminate Rahu from the list. Rahu we have. And then Mars is also not there in the ruling planet. So Mars also we will. So now we are left with Ketu. Let's make a list of what now we finally have. So we have Ketu, and then we have Mercury, and then we have Sun and Saturn. So between this and the ruling planet, and then applying the retrograde rule, we finally shortlisted that these are the real significator for the 2, 7 and 2, 6 and 10. Now this rule, the KP's rule, reject the RPs in star or sub of retrograde planet. I would say reject the RPs which are in star and sub of retrograde planet. So we got the final list. Finally. Now let's look at what Dasha this person is. So we find that he is undergoing Sun and Jupiter until 2024, February 12, 2024. So since Jupiter is not in our list, so we can say that Sun Jupiter, nothing will happen. Now let's look at the Sun Saturn. We find that in the final list we have Ketu, Mercury, Sun and Saturn. So Saturn is a good promising significator. Now within that we have to find the Sun Dasha is already active. So within this Sun Dasha, this person will get a job. Then the Antardasha is Saturn. Saturn is also very promising. And now we have to figure it out what the Pratyantardasha we have to select. The selection of the significator and then relating it to the Dasha, this is the main skill that you have to develop. And that you will develop when you start doing hands-on the Horary chart, then you will develop your own insight into how to eliminate. But I'm going to share some of the experience that how this is done. So, because if you look at this combination, so we already know that Sun and Saturn, this Dasha is going on, and within Sun Saturn, now we have to figure out the Pratyanta Dasha. And why it will happen in Sun Saturn is because the 11th house. See, this rule will be very helpful for you. Let me write this. Prepare 3 set of this will help you identify the Dasha Antar and the Pratyanta. Prepare 3 set of significators. Look at the 11th. Now, prepare 3 set of significator means that if you have the final these planets, then the Sun Dasha, Saturn Antardasha, or Sun Dasha, Mercury Antardasha could also be there. Why only Sun Saturn? Why it couldn't be Sun Mercury? Because Sun Mercury is also a significator. So in that, what you have to do is you have to prepare 3 set of significators. And then you have to look at the 11th cusp. 11th cusp, you look at the 11th cusp, it is what it is? Cancer ascendant. So that's movable. And Moon is a very fast planet. So when you find movable and fast, select the very first promising Dasha, Antar, and Pratyanta. This rule will help you a lot. Select the very first promising Dasha, Antar, and Pratyanta. Our the Jyotish portal layout of this is Dasha, Antar, and Pratyanta rather than Dasha, Bhakti, and Antar. That's used. Those words are used mostly in by the South Indian astrologers. So I have mentioned Dasha, Antar, and Pratyanta so that you don't get confused. So when the 11th house has a movable sign and fast and the effect of fast moving planets, then you have to select the very first promising period. When it is dual, when it is a dual sign. Dual sign means the Gemini or the Virgo or the Sagittarius, and then if suppose Mercury's influence is also there, then you have to select the second set. Then you have to eliminate the immediate period that looks promising. That's going to fall through if the 11th house, which basically means the fulfillment of desire, is indicating a duality. Means that first attempt it might not be, or first promising period will not be very fruitful. So then select the second set, and if it is fixed, then the last one. The fixed is usually indicates some delay. Then another rule is that about the Punarfu. Punarfu is when you have moon in Saturn sign. This is only applicable to Horary, nothing to do with the natal. So when the Punarfu is there, see the word Punarfu, Sanskrit word Punah. Punah means repeated attempt. So when the moon is in certain sign, in the certain sign or star, then it creates a delay. It creates some frustration. That's what this particular yoga Punarfu indicates in a Horary horoscope. So if you have a Punarfu yoga, then also you have to eliminate the very first opportunity and then focus on the subsequent one. So this is how then you have to select. So now if you look at the Dasha and then in the chain of events, we have to look at the all significators which are participating. So if we take the Dasha Lord Sun, so we already see that Sun is a very strong significator of the 10th house, right? The Sun is already indicating the 10th house. Similarly, the Saturn is untenanted and is very strongly connected with the 6th. So now what is missing? The only second house is missing. And the strong significator for second is both. Ketu is also there and Mercury is also there. Both are there. They indicate the second house. But since Ketu is in the Virgo, Ketu is in the sign of Virgo, so it is representing Mercury. So in the Krishnamurti Paddhati Horary, the rule is that if the nodes, which means Rahu, Ketu, if they are representing any fruitful significator, then the preference has to be given to that particular node. So then we can say that Sun, Dasha, Saturn, Dasha, and Ketu. This seems to be the most fruitful period. Let's look at when this period is going to appear in the Dasha time. So this is going to start from May 26th and end in June 15th. May 26th. Okay. So this is the period. May 26th, 2024 and June 15th. This is hardly 19 days. So we are pretty close that within these 19 days, there is this person, this querent should be able to get a job. Now let's look at let's try to identify the exact date. So for that we will have to go to so we have navigated to the ephemery section. Now on the Jyotish portal we have this ephemery section for looking into the transit. The retrograde, when the planets are retrograde, they are flagged by this red colored R alphabet. So we are looking at a period between May to June. Now let me write down the how to match the transit. So slow moving planets should be in star or star. Sun should be written somewhere. slow moving planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu must be in star or sub of the Dasha, DBA or it is Dasha Antar Pratyantar. And then fast moving planet including Sun must be in any two. This combination is created, sign, star and sub. So any two of these conditions should be fulfilled by Sun. And Moon must be in the star of one of the Dashantar and Pratyantar. And Day Lord also must represent one from the Dasha Antar and so these are the rules for matching the transit. Little bit tedious, but not very difficult. So let's first move on to the 24, and our period was May June. So let's sorry. See the way this merit table has been structured is that when you select June from here, then still shows about I think a few days, about 10 days of the previous month. So June is selected, but still showing days from the May, and then it will show the for the month that is selected, and then again it will show another 10 days for the next or the subsequent month. So first we have to focus on the Saturn and Ketu, because our rule is that the slow moving Saturn Ketu. Why we are taking Saturn Ketu, because they are part of the Dasha, Antar and Pratyantar. So Saturn and Ketu, that we have to first look into. And Ketu, you already know we have selected because it represents Mercury. So Saturn is already in the sub of Mercury, and it's going to be in sub of Mercury, right? Yeah, pretty much the whole period is going to be in sub of Mercury. So we are Saturn transit is agreeing. Similarly, if you look at Ketu, Ketu is also in the sub of Mercury and going to be in Mercury sub until the not only until, because it then because of its natural retrograde motion, it will enter into the Saturn sub. So Saturn is also a part of uh, the Dasha Antar and Pratyantar. So Ketu and Saturn is good. So we need not worry about the Ketu and Saturn. These transits are agreeing. Now let's look at the Sun. So Sun you see is in Taurus. Sun is in the Sun star. So this is also okay because Sun is in its own star and it is in the sub of Ketu. So there is multiple days when you will find that Sun's transit might agree. Sun in the star of Sun, which is the Mahadasha Lord, and in the sub of the Ketu, which is the Pratyanta Dasha. So this period is agreeing, and then the Sun will move to the Moon, Taurus and Moon. So when Sun moves into Taurus and Moon, nothing is going to agree. So except for this, nothing will agree. For Sun, Saturn, and Ketu, only this particular day will agree. But let's look at the Moon on that particular day. So you find that Moon is in the star of Rahu. So this is not agreeing because Moon has to be in the star of Saturn or Sun or Ketu or Mercury. So when Sun moves into Taurus, then this thing is not agreeing. So let's look at when Sun moves into Gemini. Now you see around 15th, the sun has moved into Gemini. The rest of the Saturn and Ketu transit is already agreeing, so we are not too concerned about it. Here, sun will be transiting Gemini, the Mercury, and which is one of the signification that we are using to match transit. So here, from here onward, when sun is in Gemini, until and our Dasha is ending somewhere in 26. So this period only, from 15 to 26, which is about 9 days. Within 9 days, you have to find out when moon is going to be in the star of sun or in the star of Saturn or in the star of Ketu or in the star of Mercury. So 2 or 3 days you will only find when the moon is going to transit in these stars. Now, how to figure out whether it's going to be the moon's transit into the sun star or moon's transit into the Saturn or Mercury? So I'll tell you the rule, but the thing is that even if you predict that within this 15th of June to 26th of June, you are going to get into a job. This is not a small prediction. This itself is a very spectacular prediction, not easy to give, but with the help of the Krishnamurti Paddhati, you can derive and focus and identify it a very short span of time. So let me give you the rule for the moon. The rule for the moon is that you have to look at which is the strongest among the three. And what are the three that we identified? That those were the sun, Saturn, and Ketu, right? The Dasha Lord, Antar Lord, the Pratyanta Lord. So, sun is in the star of Mercury. The sun is a very powerful significator of the 10th house. Saturn is in the star of is untenanted, so it's a very strong significator of the 6th house. And Ketu has come through Mercury. So Ketu we can eliminate from this picture. So now it is only between sun and Saturn. So the day when the when the moon transit in the star of sun or the Saturn. Now usually Saturdays and Sundays are holidays and you don't get any notification. So we can say that maybe in some evening time on the Friday evening, right? The the moon might enter into one of these stars. So that is the day you can identify and you can say, okay, on this particular day, you are likely or you will get an information that you have been selected for a job. These days, getting into a job is not like, I think, not something that happens on a very specific date or time. It is more like a process. The person goes and the interview process is there, and then this he or she is given some signal that they are selected or not selected. So I think the one that we did, where we identified about 7 or 10 days of time, so that time is fair enough. But still, if you want to pinpoint the day, then this is how you have to take the help of the moon. Now with this, some other questions also are comes into the picture. Follow-up question. One is the what kind of job the person will get. So for that, you have to look at the 10th cusp combination. This one. Now this particular degree, the Gemini 24, 12, 23, it indicates a combination of Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, and then Jupiter that appears as the star lord and Mercury as a sublord. This particular area of the zodiac indicates some specific businesses, and those lists you can find in the third reader. So I was able to extract this information. So this is the zone, the one that we are talking about. It has a lot of other stuff like about the disease and all that. So we will eliminate the irrelevant thing. And then retain only things that have something to do with the nature of job. So now you can see that the salesman or the bookseller, and then it talks about the some research scholar. So those kind of a thing. So this seems like a usual clerical kind of a job in a department, not a very high profile kind of a job. The sometimes the querent they ask that will they have some authority or superiority in the job. So obviously, you don't see Mars in the picture, so you can say no, you will not have. Then some other question that they might have. Let me. Is this going to be a government job? So you don't find Sun in this picture, but Sun is still in the Mahadasha. So you can say that this might, in some remote way, be related to Sun, the government, but it it's not going to be a government job. And then another thing is the will this involve traveling? So these are the usual questions that you get when somebody is asking about a job and career. So now you can see that the sun, which is indicating 3, 12, 3. So you know that it's going to involve traveling. You say, yeah, the traveling is involved. So here you say, yes. And then will this be going to be a satisfactory position? So for that, obviously, you have to look at the 11th. So now you see that the 11th, the moon is nowhere in the picture. It's not a significator, and then on top of it, the moon is not also a part of the immediate Dasha Bhukti. So you will say this is not going to be a very satisfactory position. And the Saturn, which is the Bhuktinath, will anyway is a planet that is not going to give you a satisfaction. So this is the general rule that if Saturn is involved, and in this query chart you can see that Saturn is a very strong significator of the 6th house. So that means that this person will have to do a lot of hard work over there, because Saturn is hard work, and 6th house also indicates hard work. So you can tell the querent that he or she must be ready to do a lot of hard work. Saturn, because nature is dissatisfaction. So there is not going to be a dissatisfaction until this person starts running the dasha of moon, which is going to happen after 2027. So when the moon period starts, and since moon is a very strong significator of the 11th house, so from that period onward, this person's position in whatever department he is working will change, and he will have a good level of satisfaction with his job. See, a lot of these the extra baggage kind of a thing that comes with a question, that you have to keep on reading some of the Krishnamurti's articles and whatever other resources you get on the internet, and this is how you can then increase your own knowledge about how to handle and how to address these extra follow-up questions that you get from the query. And as you do more hands-on practice with the various other queries, you will have a very good confidence on the KP Horary. Now, before I conclude, I've been reminding this in many of my videos that in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, the real magic is in the cuspal sublot. And the, the surety of cuspal sublot being exact, it happens only in the query chart. And since you have only one question to handle, and the entire cusp chart, the cuspal sublot, all these elements are at your disposal. So no doubt the Professor Krishnamurti was able to do wonders using the KP Horary. There are so many hidden secrets. Once in a time I stumble upon some rare articles, and I'm surprised that there are so many different ways with ways the people they tend to solve the Horary queries. And maybe later in some more videos, I'm going to share some more of those different. So that's all in this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching.